I'm Suzi Landolfi, and welcome to Be Crazy Well. Now, why would a therapist say that? Because we all have mental health struggles, even therapists. The good news is we have so much more information about how we can be crazy well. On my podcast, we don't focus on what's wrong with us. We want to know what happened to us. We're going to explore how trauma affected us, both negatively and positively. That's right. I said positively. It's called post-traumatic growth, and it's a real thing. Be Crazy Well will share mental health wellness practices, the newest mental health research, and most importantly, how we all get to create the person we deserve to be and the life we deserve to live. So join the mental health evolution and be crazy well. Welcome, everybody, to Be Crazy Well. That's right. We're all crazy. We deserve to do it well. I want you to look at this picture behind me. Look at that. Yep. That's, and if you can't, take a look at the recording later with the video. That's an amazing horse that was running at our Wild Horse Sanctuary. So I happen to be a board member and a grateful member of Lifesavers Wild Horse Rescue. Great name, right? Lifesavers. And it was started by one woman rescuing one horse. We now have over 400. We have 1,300 acres. Thousands have gone through Lifesavers. Started by Jill Starr. Now, isn't that cool that her name happens to be Starr? Because she is. And I have the honor of being able to go up there on weekends and for different events. We actually host some veteran retreats, weekend retreats, where we literally put men and women in a 60-foot round pen with a wild horse and a helmet. And we teach and model how it is to gentle a wild horse. No breaking. I have no desire to break anything. As a matter of fact, because of my trauma as a child, every time something breaks, I get anxious and I have to fix it. Probably makes me a good therapist. Anyway, so we teach people how to gentle the horse. Of course, the funny thing is, the human gets gentled as well. Because when you think about it, we are not gentle species. I don't think that naturally we're that gentle. I think we're kind of rough, kind of rugged, tough around the edges. And I think that trauma, the way that we nurture our youth, is not about being gentle. It's about survival. Well, that's true for wild horses as well, except that they understand one thing that sometimes we don't understand. And that's that we are stronger together than we are by ourselves. We have a very strange word in our species called independence. I was thinking about that the other day. And I thought, when was I ever independent? I've never made my own shoes, my own car. I suppose you could say if I was survivalist or I was off grid, I did everything myself and I was very independent. Chances are there were things I bought that someone else made. So I always like to say we're interdependent. The most important thing about gentling a wild horse is the idea that how we are, our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions, if they are not the same, if we are not honest and authentic about what's happening to us, with us, in us, the horse will not trust us. And I know that we've all been told that when you meet a wild animal, you should, pretend you're not afraid. That's not always true. And one thing that's so wonderful about horses, and they taught me, is they much more prefer that we're honest than pretending that we're something we're not. Now, I suppose the difference is that the bear might see me as a wonderful appetizer. I'm not big enough to be a full meal. The horse doesn't want to eat me. They eat grass. I know a lot of my friends say that horses are just prey animals. Yeah, they don't eat other animals, yet they'll fight. And they will fight to protect the herd. and they're young. So I wouldn't say they're always just prey. They aren't predators per se, but they are not that, let's say they're not that afraid. They won't back down when they've got to protect their young and their herd. So going back to being gentled and gentling a wild horse, not breaking it, the idea is that we don't try to overpower this wild horse. We're going to try to convince the wild horse that we are congruent, that our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions are the same, that I don't pretend that I'm kinder than I am, and I don't pretend that I'm braver than I am. I literally get into that pen with that wild horse, and I let them know what's going on with me at that moment. And for that moment, if I really am anxious, well, what I do basically is I tell them, I like verbalize it. I literally look at that horse that's about standing 30 feet away from me, and I say, look, I'm really anxious right now. I don't know you. You don't know me. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen here. So I'm just letting you know I'm a little anxious, and I'm going to keep breathing. And I wanted you to also know that I'm not here to hurt you or eat you. And I am anxious. What's interesting, when I learned that I could actually say those words to the horse, even if the horse doesn't understand my language, it understood my energy at that moment. Oftentimes, depending on the wild horse, they're all different. Some will pace, some will stand frozen, watching, some will turn away and not even look at me. What I understood at that moment was I was being congruent. I was being honest. I was letting the horse know that I wasn't lying to them. I wasn't coming in there to try to control the situation. I was coming in there to connect first with my own honesty about how I'm thinking, feeling, and acting. And then telling them, letting them know that I'm being honest about what's happening for me first. That was a huge, big thing for me. That was probably one of the greatest healing practices that I've ever had. And the reason I say that is because in my childhood, I had to lie all the time. So when a parent is anxious or a parent is rageful, we have to adjust ourselves to that parent's presentation, their behavior, their energy. And we're always looking as children to find a way to survive what might be a dangerous situation in our own home. So I became a great liar about what was really going on for me. If I was scared, sometimes I had to pretend I wasn't. If I wasn't scared, sometimes I had to pretend I was, so that the rageful parent would calm down. Once they knew they had control over me, and they knew I was afraid and I was going to submit, oftentimes they stopped being rageful. So it was very confusing that I had to be different or lying or pretending and convincing them of something that I wasn't. So what wild horses did for me was helped me practice being congruent, being honest, so that I could understand how my thoughts, my feelings, and my actions must be the same in order for me to be honest. When I was able to do that in that round pen, I could tell you truthfully, I can't remember a situation where a horse didn't take a breath and just respond in kind, meaning that they were then allowed to be honest about what's going on for them. Oftentimes, the horse that was pacing stopped. Sometimes the horse that was frozen in fear actually shook its head, walked a little bit. They were able to connect with my honesty, even if it was a look, even if that horse turned around and just looked at me. So the joke for all of us at Lifesavers when we do these gentling retreats was, we hope the person gets gentled. We know the horse will respond. We're not sure how the adult or the person will. And it wasn't just for veterans. We've done it for civilians as well. It's just that we realize that those that have a very hyper, constantly on stress response system really responded to the idea of gentling, being congruent quickly. It gave them an opportunity to settle their stress response system. Their thoughts, their feelings, and their actions could actually relax for a moment. They didn't have to be in control. They didn't have to control this horse. All they had to do was connect to their own energy first. That's number one, connecting to yourself first. And then finding a way to connect with that horse, one very small, honest moment at a time. Sometimes it would be just breathing together. Sometimes it was taking a walk around the round pen and not even focusing on the horse, just getting to know your environment. I oftentimes walk around the round pen and I'm looking down, and one of our great gentlers taught me that if I focus on something else other than the horse, that if I truly look down and look for any rocks, that I could just focus on those rocks, pick them up, and throw them outside the round pen, that I could go and help take care of the environment for both of us. That was a magical moment for me because I noticed that the horse then appreciated. And how did I know it appreciated it? Because sometimes it walked with me, sometimes it watched. It all of a sudden, sometimes it would look down as well and help me figure out if we were in a safe place. It also knew that I wasn't going to put all my energy on that particular horse at that time. That would have been too much for them because still they know I'm a meat eater. They know I have eyes in front of my head while they have eyes on the side of their head. And they knew that I could be a threat. So the more times that I didn't focus on the horse, the more the horse was curious about me. It also started to look at whether or not I was consistent. Was I picking up rocks and just walking around and being focused on something other than them? And then did I switch my focus on them a lot? Or did I continue to just focus on what was around me for a long time? And when I did finally focus on the horse, how much? Did I go right at them? Did I step forward to them? Or did I actually stand back? And what this gentling process looks like is it's based on please and thank you. Now, Jill came up with that, and I always appreciated that she used the words please and thank you. A lot of our trainers use the word pressure and release, which is also okay. It's just when you say please and thank you, it does something to my heart and to my mind about what I'm asking of somebody. I don't know about you, but I was always taught to say please and thank you. So that resonated with me, that if I was asking somebody to do something, I would say, please. If they did it, I would say thank you. So this idea of saying please and thank you or pressure and release was if I did start to put a little focus on that horse, even just looking at it, I would have to let the horse know why I'm putting that pressure on. So instead of just thinking about it in my head, I would actually say it out loud. So I'd say, please look at me. If the horse is looking down, looking away, and all I want is a small connection, not control, a connection of looking at me, just being able to turn its head towards me. I might move towards it just a little bit, just even leaning forward like I'm doing now. And the second that the horse looked at me, I backed up. I said, thank you. So here's the pressure. Here's the release. When I move forward towards you, that's pressure. When I step back, that is release. This is please look at me. Oh, thank you for looking at me. Now, I'm one of those people that if I don't say it out loud, my brain will probably, go, well, is it going to kick me? Is it going to move? Like all of a sudden, my brain is bringing in way too much information and trying to protect me. by asking me a whole bunch of questions, making me worry about a whole bunch of things that could happen. So pressure and release didn't actually calm my system enough. When I asked out loud the horse to do something, I was then able to focus a little bit more on what it was I was doing. And it also allowed me to do it in a step process. So I didn't move really fast towards the horse and say, please look at me. I would say, I'm only going to look at you. I'm just going to lean forward until you look at me. So I might lean a little bit further, might take a little step. And the minute the horse looks at me, I step way back and say, thank you. Saying it out loud reminds me of what it is that I'm doing. And I couldn't help but think about how we don't do that in all of our relationships. At work, with our kids, our families, our lovers, whatever it is, even the grocery store, wherever you are. How often are you thinking about what you would like something to happen and you're not saying it? You're not actually saying it. So I had a funny experience last night with my family. So there was my daughter and her fiance, and my grandson has a job at a wonderful restaurant, and he loves it. He's only 18, and it's kind of his first corporate. This is a chain of restaurants, and he loves it, and he's just enjoying it so much. And he's learning about HR and all the regulations, and you have to put a request in for a time off. And it's a great experience for him, and how you could learn one job and then start to move up the ladder. So anyways, we go there a lot now. I think we're going there because we want to make sure he keeps his job. Just kidding. Anyway, there was no seats available where we wanted to sit in the patio area. And I looked at the bar, and there was two lovely, it was a man and a woman, a young couple. And there was a seat on the other side of them and two on the other side of them. So there was two people sitting and then one single seat. So I walked up to them and I said, listen, I hope this is not a big ask. I was wondering, would it be okay if you moved down one seat so the three of us could sit together? Would that be okay? And she said, sure, like no problem. And they moved down. And I looked over to the horror of my daughter's fiance, and he goes, oh, well, that's embarrassing. And I thought, oh, to ask for what you want and you need in a nice way wasn't necessarily a part of his upbringing. That you have to either wait or you just don't do that. And not bad or good. It wasn't that I was wrong and he's right, or he's wrong and I'm right. It was an experience that he didn't have, or it could have been that there was an experience when people asked for what they wanted in a really harsh way, and that was embarrassing. Or they demanded that you do something, and that could have embarrassed him. I don't know. I haven't asked him about that yet. And I said, oh, yeah, okay, I get that. And I said, I think they're okay with it. So I looked back at this young woman and I said, was that okay that I asked you to move? I hope I really didn't go out of my way or like make it difficult. She said, no, it was fine. And I look on the back of her t-shirt and she has wolves. It's like a college with I think the wolf or wolves are the mascot. Anyway, I said, oh, I'm also part of a wolf sanctuary. I said, I love your t-shirt. And we had this wonderful conversation. And I watched over at my daughter's fiance, and it was really wonderful to watch him consider that what I did wasn't embarrassing. So go back to pressure and release and please and thank you. That couple could have said, and I would have been okay with it, no, we actually just want to stay here. And I go, okay, got it. You were here first. I'm okay with that. That's the idea of connection, not control. So when you ask for something, you say please and thank you. Are you okay with getting a no? Sometimes when I ask a wild horse to do something, and I say, please look at me, please look at me. Sometimes I have to get pretty close sometimes I might have to put more pressure on them what they like or I think. And I'm saying, please, could you just please look at me? Please look at me. I've got you. I won't hurt you. And when they take that little risk to look, I stand way back. I move almost out of the ring and say, thank you, thank you, thank you. Because everybody's amount of pressure and release or please and thank you is different. I don't know if you've ever had to talk to someone, ask them to do something, and they go, why? That's always an interesting situation. Well, we would love to sit together, and that's why I'd love you to move if it's okay with you. If it's not, we'll wait. Or, honey, could you please do this? Or I need you to do your homework now. And the child might say, why? Why do I need to do it now? There's a saying that some of us have that use control more than connection. And the saying is, because I said so. Okay, that's control. That's not connection. I'll tell you another funny story about that. I decided that that's what my dad used to do to me. I wasn't going to do that to my daughter. So I was always ready with a reason. Sometimes the reason was I have a feeling. I don't think we should go there now. Well, why? I just have a feeling that it doesn't feel right that we should go there now, or going over to that house doesn't feel right. I don't know those people well enough for us to do that. So it was interesting for me to even be able to use the reason I don't feel comfortable with it right now. I can't tell you a specific reason. I just have a gut feeling, which was also kind of wonderful that I shared with her that she can use that as well. So cut to her going down to her grandmother's house down in Pennsylvania, who is probably the nicest human being in the world. And Kirsha wanted to go to the grandmother's sister's house and said, can we go to Aunt Reenie's? And her grandmother was in the middle of something, said, no, we can't go now. And my daughter did what she usually does, which is, why can't we go now? And grandma, at that moment, was just under a lot of pressure. And she said, well, because I said so, and had to move on to something. So I get a call a few minutes later, and my daughter's 5, and she's crying. And she goes, Mommy, something happened. I go, okay, what happened? And she said, well, I wanted to go to Aunt Reenie's, and I asked Grandma if we could go. And she said, no. And I said, well, Grandma's, she's in charge. She's got the car keys. She's your protector. So if she says no, then that's going to have to be something that you understand is for your safety or for a good reason. That was my mistake. And she said, well, I know, I just asked for the reason. I said, why can't we go now? And she said, because I said so. What does that mean? So her grandmother and I had a very funny laugh about that. And I said, it means that she was in a lot of pressure right now and couldn't explain the reason right now. I'm sure when she has time and she's not so rushed or things are a little bit less chaotic, she probably has a really good reason, because I know your grandmother. So it just means sometimes that people don't have the reason right at that moment, or they don't have the bandwidth right now. I didn't say bandwidth then, but they don't have the ability to tell you the reason right now. And that sufficed. That helped her. So I think of going back to those wild horses, and I think about all of us with our pressure and release, our please and thank you. And I wonder if we take enough time to give ourselves a reason. I'm wondering if we say please and thank you to ourselves. I wonder when we ask ourselves to do something that we say please and thank you. I wonder if we ask ourselves in a way that is less pressure and less demands and less control. And it's more about connecting with what we deserve to do for ourselves that will help us create the person we deserve to be and the life we deserve to live. Or are we ordering ourselves? Are we not saying please and thank you? Are we putting too much pressure on ourselves? The one thing about a wild horse that they will teach you is if you put too much pressure on them, if you demand that they do something right now, the way you want it, with too much energy, they will do whatever it takes to get away from you, including hurting themselves by trying to jump over a 6-foot fence. That's what will happen. I work with people who struggle with substance abuse and lots of other issues. And I know that when we put too much pressure on others or ourselves, we're going to have to look for a release. And sometimes that release is using a drug or alcohol or people or actions that can truly hurt ourselves. Most of us probably have been pressured too much. Most of us have been taught to put too much pressure on ourselves and not enough release. The interesting thing about the pressure and relief with wild horses, the pressure will actually inspire or sometimes put the ask on them to do something maybe a little bit before they're ready. And they will do it the only way that they figure out that what they just did was safe and okay, and that you're okay, is through the release. They will move away from the pressure. They will watch you about the pressure. They will turn their head towards you only to see if they need to run. And when you back up, when you take that pressure off, they start to move toward you. You have already told them, I am safer than what you think right now. And the only way I can convince you that I'm safer is to be congruent all the time, that I never use too much pressure, that I never hurt you, that I never demand, that I never try to control you, that I will honor you by putting just enough pressure in order for us to connect and for you to see that I am honest, that I'm physically, emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually safe all the time. Now, that doesn't mean that I won't keep asking a little bit more of us. That doesn't mean that I won't say, okay, now I need you to look at me again, or I need you to move a little bit. Let's go walk together. That doesn't mean that I won't keep putting a little pressure on in order to help us connect. I promise I won't put too much on that will ever force you to think that you have to jump over a 6-foot fence to get away from me. I so wish that we all knew how to do that on a regular basis with ourselves and with those that we care about. And I think about those people and what they have to use, what I used when I had too much pressure put on me, and how much that hurt and didn't help. It didn't give me a release. It gave me a little relief, short term. And unfortunately, using people, places, and things actually puts more pressure on us in the long run. So what are you using? What are you using for relief? How could you actually give yourself a big release? How could you practice different behaviors that really teach us how to take the pressure off ourselves and others so that we can take a pause and connect? How can we say please to ourselves and others and then give ourselves a big thank you? How could we take a look and say a step process, small steps, small pressure, big release, small pressure, big release, a big thank you to ourselves and others to keep creating safer, congruent connection with one another. Thank you. Thank you for taking time to look at this wonderful wild horse, to listen to this. And I don't know if most people understand that when those of us are have the honor of working with people and helping them with their pressure and release and creating the person they deserve to be and the life they deserve to live, it helps us. every time I do this podcast, every time I go over to that treatment center, every time I get to talk to someone, either through FaceTime or face-to-face, it helps me. It helps me be congruent. It helps me be the person I deserve to be. It helps me make sure that I'm not putting too much pressure on me. And it really helps me not be a hypocrite. I will never ask any of you or anybody I work with to do something I'm not doing. I'm not going to do that. I realized that when I first started to become a therapist, was that the medical model allows me to ask you to tell you to do things I'm not doing. And I'm not going to be that person. I can't. This is too important to me and my connection with myself, connection with those that I love, and especially connection with those horses. They taught me everything. And I want to thank Jill Starr and Lifesavers. Please go and check them out. It's wildhorserescue.org, wildhorserescue.org. It's Lifesavers Wild Horse Rescue. And it's amazing. And I'm so grateful. And so have a great week. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. It's the release that makes us come forward and step forward towards one another. All right. Until again, be crazy well. You deserve it. Be crazy well. Thank you, Calvin Love, for the theme song, Be Your Best Self. Oh, couldn't have said that any better. Check that song out. It's great. And so is he. Take care.